Have you ever set out to tackle a big project, only to find yourself paralyzed by the sheer size of the task? It's easy to feel overwhelmed, especially when we're faced with something that feels too massive to even begin. But what if I told you the secret to staying motivated doesn't lie in achieving big goals right away, but in celebrating small victories? This is the concept of small wins, and it's more powerful than we realize. Small wins are small, incremental successes that, when stacked together, create a cascade of positive momentum. They don't just move you closer to your end goal, they help shift your mindset from, "I can't do this," to, "I'm making progress." Think of a snowball rolling downhill, gradually growing larger with each turn. Elon Musk, for example, didn't start with creating SpaceX or Tesla in one big leap. His small wins, like designing the first rockets or building prototype electric cars, were key stepping stones that kept him motivated when things seemed impossible. Even when the odds were stacked against him, his consistent small wins acted as a fuel source that pushed him toward the bigger vision. When we're bogged down by the enormity of a goal, we often forget the power of progress in small doses. Yet, as our small wins accumulate, they slowly shift our entire self-perception. Our confidence builds, and our brains release dopamine, the feel-good chemical, rewarding us for moving forward. It's a reminder that success isn't always about giant leaps, but about finding joy and motivation in the process, no matter how small the steps. Now that we understand the power of small wins, let's dive into another psychological trick, using your anti-goals to stay focused and avoid burnout. We're often taught to focus on our goals, but have you ever stopped to consider the power of anti-goals, the things you don't want? Surprisingly, identifying what you don't want can be just as motivating as identifying what you do. The anti-goals theory is based on the idea that, while we all have dreams and desires, fear of failure or undesirable outcomes can be just as motivating. Rather than just focusing on a vision of success, you consider what you absolutely want to avoid. What would happen if you didn't take action? What if you stayed stuck, constantly feeling unfulfilled? Often, this fear can fuel us just as much, if not more, than an abstract vision of success. For example, Elon Musk has publicly discussed his motivation being driven by the fear of humanity's stagnation, his anti-goal. He feared a future where humanity became complacent, dependent on fossil fuels, and couldn't make the leap to space. This fear pushed him to overcome impossible odds and turn SpaceX into a reality. The idea of anti-goals may sound paradoxical, but it taps into a fundamental part of human nature. Avoiding pain is often a stronger motivator than seeking pleasure. By identifying what you don't want, you give yourself an immediate sense of urgency. The pain of staying stagnant or falling short is often more compelling than the joy of reaching a far-off goal. But this concept also brings up a deeper philosophical question: are we driven more by our desires or by our fears? And what happens when we find ourselves trapped in a cycle of negative motivation? With the anti-goals theory in mind, let's now explore a strategy that helps keep you in the moment and avoid overthinking, how breaking big tasks into smaller, bite-sized pieces leads to clearer action. How often have you found yourself overwhelmed by a task simply because it seemed too big? We've all been there, and the truth is, overthinking or focusing on the big picture can paralyze us. But here's the trick: break it down. The bite-sized approach is the idea of breaking a large, daunting task into smaller, more manageable chunks. By doing this, we reduce cognitive overload and make the task feel less intimidating. The key is to focus on one small action at a time, which not only simplifies the task but also makes it easier to get started. Elon Musk used this approach when creating his companies. Rather than focusing on the entire mission of revolutionizing the car industry or making life multi-planetary, he started with solving small, specific engineering problems. For example, Tesla's mission to create electric cars began with creating batteries that could power those cars, a small but important task in the grand scheme of things. The implications of this strategy are profound. It teaches us that success doesn't come from waiting for the perfect moment or having everything figured out. It comes from taking consistent action on the things that are within our control. And more importantly, it challenges our tendency to get overwhelmed by too much information or too many possibilities. Take a moment to reflect. If you feel overwhelmed by something, what part of it can you break down into a smaller, more actionable step? Now that we've broken things down into smaller tasks, let's look at how prioritizing your energy over time can help maintain sustainable motivation. Motivation is a resource, but like any resource, it's finite. So, how do we avoid running out of steam when working toward our goals? The answer is simple: manage your energy over time. Instead of pushing yourself hard every single day and risking burnout, learn to manage your energy wisely. Recognize that motivation ebbs and flows. There will be days when you feel on top of the world, and other days when getting out of bed seems impossible. Smart people understand this and conserve their energy for when it matters most. Elon Musk has openly admitted to working long hours, but also recognizes the importance of downtime. He balances intense bursts of productivity with rest, and that's what keeps him going in the long run. The implication here is a shift in how we think about productivity. We often equate success with constant hustle, but true motivation isn't about working non-stop. It's about knowing when to rest, recharge, and come back stronger. This balance is crucial not just for maintaining motivation but for sustaining long-term growth and success. Take a moment to reflect. Are you managing your energy or simply trying to power through? Now that we've discussed how to conserve energy, let's dive into a psychological trick that can boost motivation in even the toughest moments: the power of worst-case scenario thinking. It may sound counterintuitive, but sometimes, the best way to get motivated is to envision the worst-case scenario. When fear feels paralyzing, we can actually use it to fuel our drive. The worst-case scenario thinking involves considering the worst possible outcome of a situation. But instead of letting it paralyze you, this strategy allows you to get clear on what truly matters. When you face your fears head-on and realize that things could be far worse than you imagined, you gain a sense of urgency to act now and avoid those negative outcomes. Elon Musk uses this tactic in his approach to business and life. His worst-case scenario is the collapse of human civilization, and that fear drives him to work relentlessly toward building a multiplanetary future. He knows that if he doesn't act now, the world may miss out on solutions that could save humanity in the long run. While this tactic may seem a bit harsh, it's rooted in the idea that fear of failure is a natural part of being human. But instead of letting fear stop you, face it and use it to drive you forward. By confronting the worst-case scenario, you realize that the stakes are high, and that's often the motivation you need to push through laziness and procrastination. Motivation isn't a mystical force that some people are just born with, it's a skill you can develop, a mindset you can cultivate. By incorporating these psychological tricks, small wins, anti-goals, breaking tasks down, managing energy, and using worst-case scenario thinking, you can overcome even the toughest days. Remember, even Elon Musk wasn't always destined for greatness. But with the right mindset and strategies, he rose above the challenges. And so can you.